Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? All right, so Senior Bowl was last week. The game itself was this weekend. The practice, as they often say, the practice is more valuable than the game itself. It's the week of practice, competing, one-on-ones, going through meetings, being evaluated by NFL coaching staffs and scouts alike. That has come and gone. Now, post Senior Bowl, you're starting to see some mock drafts after you kind of saw, like, okay, who are the winners, the losers, who are the big risers, who had the good week out in Mobile, who maybe struggled a little bit. And I think the quarterbacks are, that conversation around the quarterbacks are what is most telling right now. For a long time, what we saw at the top of the draft were edge rushers. We saw Kayvon Thibodeau and then Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan as the guys at the top of the draft. That's starting to change. And we have seen Jacksonville, of course, go heavy on pass rushers of late. Of course, K'Lavon Chaisson is there. But last year, they used the first overall pick to draft Trevor Lawrence, and they need to protect him. And so Evan Neal, the offensive tackle out of Alabama, is the latest that you're starting to see a lot of buzz as the number one overall pick. And it would make sense if they go that direction. They don't need a quarterback. You protect your greatest asset. Evan Neal has jumped up in there. And this is a mock draft from ESPN.com. And it's ESPN.com's newest draft analyst. It's Jordan Reed, who's joined McShay and Kuiper as their newest analyst. The rest of the top 10 is kind of how it looks, although you're seeing a couple of interesting changes. Kayvon Thibodeau, 2 to Detroit. Aiden Hutchinson, the edge rusher from Michigan, 3 to the Houston Texans. 4 is a spot where we had seen Derek Stingley prominently mocked. Now that's Ikem Ekwonu, the offensive tackle out of NC State. So you get Zach Wilson some protection. Another offensive lineman, Charles Cross from Mississippi State, 5 to the Giants. And then this is the big surprise. Malik Willis, first quarterback off the board, 6 to Carolina. So I will be fall over stunned if that's the decision that Carolina makes. And I don't want to sound as though I'm entirely poo-pooing Malik Willis, but that feels like an enormous reach. I think any of the quarterbacks in this draft in the top 10 feels like an enormous reach. Willis is the guy who went to the Senior Bowl and apparently really shined. Kenny Pickett supposedly didn't have the greatest week, but that's the thing that you're probably going to see more prominently now is Malik Willis rising up draft boards because of the week he had at the Senior Bowl. Now, can he stack upon that with the Combine, Pro Day, etc.? Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame, they have going 7 to the Giants. That's via Chicago. And then you see Derek Stingley, 8 to Atlanta. That's significant. Remember, for every spot that you drop in the first round, it costs you roughly $1 million. So where Derek Stingley had pretty prominently been mocked 4th overall to the Jets, if he falls to 8, you're talking about costing him $4 million thereabouts. That is certainly not an insignificant amount of money. Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from Utah, going 9 to Denver. Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver from Ohio State, going 10 to the Jets. That's a pick via Seattle. So the rest is somewhat standard. Kenny Pickett to Washington. Treylon Burks, the wide receiver from Arkansas, 13 to Cleveland. You kind of got to scroll to see the next most interesting draft decision. And that's who they have the Saints taking at 18 because it's a quarterback. And this is something that we're starting to see more and more commonly, but it's Matt Corral from Ole Miss. I've said this many times. I'll repeat it again. You're going to hear me say it multiple times between now and the draft. There is one quarterback, that I would be okay with the Saints taking in round 1, and it's him. It's Matt Corral. I don't know that Matt Corral is going to be a superstar, a mega star in the NFL, but I think when you look at leadership, when you look at arm talent, when you look at moxie and all of that stuff, I think he's got it. I do worry about his size. I worry about him potentially being someone who could be an injury-prone quarterback in the NFL, especially considering how much he uses his feet and his mobility. I don't love the idea of the Saints reaching in the first round for a quarterback if it's not someone that they're convinced can be the guy to lead the franchise. And then, obviously, there's a couple of things that have to be decided upon before you make this decision. Most prominently, who's going to be your coach? Who's going to be the head coach? What kind of offense are they going to run? That's going to tell you pretty definitively, if New Orleans is going to be in the mix for a quarterback at 18 overall and who that quarterback might be. If the Saints commit to Jameis Winston, then clearly you're not taking a quarterback at 18. And quite honestly, I would much rather they not take a quarterback at 18. I would rather them commit to Jameis Winston and get him weapons. You'll have Jameis Winston. You're going to get Michael Thomas back. Of course, there's this terrible situation with Alvin Kamara, which has left his both immediate and long-term future in doubt. He, at minimum, is going to face a 6-game suspension because of this arrest, potentially even more. Get your quarterback some help. Get him weapons. I mean, when you scroll through the rest of this first round, I mean, there are significant options. Drake London, the wide receiver from USC, they have gone 22 overall. Chris Olave, the wide receiver from Ohio State, going 26. Jameson Williams, the wide receiver from Alabama, who likely would have been the first receiver taken in this draft, but for the torn ACL in the national championship game. They have him going 30 to Kansas City as if they need another receiver in KC. Jahan Dotson from Penn State going 32 to Detroit. That's not even it. You're looking around 2, and my goodness, late round 2, you see John Metchy and George Pickens from Bama and Georgia, respectively, going 58 and 59. If that's where those guys are being mocked, I mean, Pickens is a guy that I think is, and Metchy, but Pickens even more so, legit number 1 game-breaking type ability, but has just battled through an injury and hasn't played much the last 2 years because of it. But if you have a chance to get that guy in round 2, my goodness, I'd be over the moon if the Saints saw that guy on the board when they had a chance to draft him in round 2. But in this mock draft, they got the Saints taking Matt Corral 18, and it is a 2-round mock. And the second round pick, they have the Saints going safety with Lewis Sine out of Georgia. I can't see that happening because that's contingent upon the Saints not re-signing Marcus Williams. Now, again, you're going to have a new head coach. So how much does that coach value Marcus Williams? We'll find out. But we know the front office, the existing staff and structure, value him tremendously. And if it's Dennis Allen, who's the head coach, you better believe they're going to re-sign Marcus Williams. They're going to do the deal. They'll structure it however they have to fit within the cap and let Kai Harley do the thing that he does so well. But you better believe Marcus Williams is going to be back. So, I mean, it's a situation where if this plays out the way that this suggests, all right, you can draft Matt Corral at 18, but you still have great receiving options still on the board. Like 2 of them I just mentioned. So, I think the way that it's presenting now with a lot of these mock drafts, there's not tremendous value in the top half of round 1 at the positions people typically use those picks on. You don't have this bevy of elite quarterbacks. There's no running back here at all. Not to say people value running back in the first round, but there's none here. And you don't even see really the elite linebacker other than Devin Lloyd, who they have going 9th overall. You know, it's a lot of offensive linemen and edge rushers. And if that's the case, okay. That means the positions where the Saints desperately need help, the value is going to be there second half of round 1 and round 2. I mean, you may really find the value in this draft in day 2 if you're New Orleans, really any team, but certainly if you're New Orleans because of the specific need that you have. If I were a team that was in desperate need of an offensive lineman, I'd want to be drafting at the top of the round. Like, that's where it's not great for the Bengals, where they need help for Joe Burrow. Man, you'd love to be drafting in the top half of this draft where you see Evan Neal and you see the kid out of NC State and you see Charles Cross and Trevor Penning is an offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa who's getting a bunch of play now in round 1. I mean, you see these guys, Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa. You see Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. These are all offensive linemen that you see going in round 1. Zion Johnson out of Boston College. There's going to be those options in this draft. But the Saints aren't really in a position where they desperately need to draft offensive line. So this may actually be a position where you don't see the Saints cash in big time at 18. But in rounds 2 and 3, they could. Keep in mind, I mean, you drafted Paulson Adebo in round 3 of this year. You found yourself a starting cornerback who you're really excited about now opposite Marshawn Lattimore. See if the Saints can turn that trick again. Some interesting takes coming out of the Senior Bowl and how that has shifted some of the projections here in the draft. But, boy, if Carolina uses the 6th overall pick to take Malik Willis, that would be somewhat stunning. And it would certainly mean Carolina is in for a bit of a rebuild there. Be it with the current coaching staff or if they end up moving on at some point. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.